Yeah,
you.
we appreciate you being with us, and you hold the title as our first female guest. So,
Yeah.
Love that.
you are the queen. You are the queen of GFW
I
right now.
love that.
Absolutely, yes. You will always be the first female guest that we've had.
Love that.
Yeah, so you will always wear that crown for us, and we appreciate it. We couldn't ask for a better person to do that for us.
Thank you. I hope I did my gender proud. Thank you.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hug.
Hey, buddy.
Daddy.
What's going on, man?
Living the dream, brother. How about you?
I'm excited for today.
Seriously, who we got on the show today?
We're talking with Jennifer Wallace, New York Times best-selling author of the book Never Enough.
I'm telling you right now, she made my brain grow.
She's one smart cookie.
Absolutely. And she holds the title of Queen Bee, our first female guest on the GF Dub podcast.
Yes, she does. So it was awesome to get to talk to her. Great book. Check out Never Enough. But today on the show, we're talking about topics including being a better father in today's achievement culture, intentionality in parenting, teaching young men about emotions, and how we can help people know that they matter.
Let's do it, dude.
Hey, Jenny, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
We obviously know that you're a New York Times bestselling author who's writing a new book on the topic of mattering. But what we really want to talk about today is your fishing addiction. And so we just wanted to ask you to elaborate kind of on your 5 best knots you tie to catch the big ones.
So I may not be a fisherman, but I love fish.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I have don't ask me questions about it, but I have done fly fishing
Okay.
in South America. And I am very supportive of my boys going deep sea fishing with their dad and
That's
awesome.
eating their catch.
Yeah.
But that's as close as I get, really. Sort of.
That's all good stuff. You get the reward of the fruits of their labor, right?
Right. I pack
Nothing
them
wrong with
snacks. Yes.
Well, South America's kind of a bucket list trip.
For us.
That's pretty awesome. Was it Patagonia?
It was sort of Patagonia light. It was northern, but yes, it was Patagonia.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I watch a lot of videos of those fishing trips and like drool on myself because I want to go so bad. So yeah.
Totally.
That's awesome.
Well, let's hop into the book that you have written. I guess Never Enough, New York Times best-selling book. What drew you to the topic of this book in the first place?
So I have 3 teenagers. They are now 19, 17, 14. And I was noticing over the years how different my kids' childhood was from my own growing up, that yes, achievement mattered, but it didn't define my life the way it does so many young people today, whether it's through sports or academics. And so I wanted to know really how we got here. Why has it become so competitive? What is it doing to our kids? And what is it doing to our families?
And that is a really good, having been a former teacher. I just recently retired and I see a lot of the same things, that kids get so goal oriented, and seem to be missing out on a lot that happens in between. And I agree with you in terms of, like, my own childhood and the way that we were brought up. It was real different. And so what were some of the most surprising, maybe unexpected findings from your research and writing of this book?
Well, it's interesting. I conducted a survey, and I'd love to read you a couple of questions from it that surprised me. So I wanted to know, was achievement pressure being felt all over the country or just a few pockets in sort of relatively affluent communities? And so with the help of a researcher at Harvard Graduate School of Education, I conducted a parenting survey. and 6,500 parents filled it out, which was an
Oh, wow.
extraordinary sample.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I asked them, the parents, questions like how much they agreed or disagreed with statements like, others think that my children's academic success is a reflection of my parenting.
Mm,
83% of parents agreed with that.
Mm.
I asked them again how much they agreed or disagreed. Parents in my community generally agree that getting into a selective college is one of the most important ingredients to later life happiness. 73% of parents agreed with that statement. And then I'll read you one more. I wish today's childhood was less stressful for my kids. 87% of parents agreed with that statement. So what that survey told me was that so many parents were feeling caught between wanting to give their kids, a happy childhood that they could look back on with nostalgia in the years to come. But they also felt like people were judging them if they weren't doing everything they could to make their kids a success. And that, to me, that sense of judgment that other parents are looking at you and judging your parenting based on your kid's success, that's new.
right. Right. It's almost like that. It's almost like the idea of keeping up with the Joneses on steroids. It
Yes.
seems like kind of that idea with it. Um, yeah, that's a fascinating outcome because I think that I have my teenagers are well, I have a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. And so I'm a little bit further on in that. And we've always kind of been at the helm of trying to let our kids find their own way, maybe sometimes to a fault on the other side where we're not directing them enough. That's the part that I always worry about. I'm not giving my kids enough. And so I think that's a real fascinating thing because on the teacher side of it, I see that the helicopter parents that want their kids to succeed and blah, 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 blah. And question every time their kid gets a B on an assignment. And so
Mhm.
I've seen that through the years kind of get worse and worse and worse and worse. So that pressure on kids. And what did you find anything astounding in like results of that kind of with parenting and kids?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things, so I wanted to find out why has it gotten worse, as you just said,
Right.
over the years. And so I interviewed historians, anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists, economists.
Right.
And the reason that resonated most with me is the economic story. So when I was growing up in the 70s and early 80s, life was generally more affordable. Housing, healthcare, higher education, these things were all more affordable. So there was more slack in the system. So a parent could be assured that even with a B minus in AP calculus, like I got my senior year, that most likely I'd be able to replicate my own childhood as an adult, if not do even better than my own parents did. That's always been the American dream, to not only do as well as your parents, but to do better.
Right.
But we parents today are facing a different reality. We are seeing the first generation, the millennials, who on average are not doing as well as their parents. We have witnessed the crush of the middle class. We have seen the steep inequity that's been ushered in over the last few decades. And so parents are absorbing these macroeconomic pressures, and they are becoming, in the words of sociologists, social conduits, passing those fears and anxieties about the future onto their kids in the way that they parent. So
Right.
modern parents don't necessarily think about it this way, but they are in many ways betting big that early childhood success, getting their kids into a quote unquote good college, they hope will act as a kind of life vest in a sea of economic uncertainty. But what we're seeing and what
Wow.
national policy reports and the data is showing is that that life vest that we're hoping to put our kids with, that achievement pressure, is really harming too many of the kids that we're trying to protect with it.
Right.
It's it's very interesting in the sense that it's almost people trying to do their best, and it's sort of turning back to harm them in a way. You know, we have a lot of dads who listen to this show. I guess, you know, having researched and written your book, what are some kind of key takeaways that you think dads could do to address this?
I love that question. So I wrote an article a year or two ago, I think it was about a year and a half ago, for the Wall Street Journal on the importance of fathers in, or male caregivers, I should say, in
Okay.
children's lives. And one of the big takeaways for me is that, and I have two boys and a daughter, and I raised my boys exactly the way I raised my daughter. I was very deliberate about, the chores they got were the same. My daughter was taking out the trash, the boys were cooking. I talked about emotions with them in the same way that I talked about it with my daughter. And what maybe one of the things that I wish I had done better earlier was that if we want our boys to feel comfortable talking about emotions, it can't just be mothers talking to them about emotions. Dads need to take the lead, because if it's just mothers, boys can internalize the idea that talking about emotions is women's work. And
Right.
so what I wish I had done was step back a bit when my kids were young, and not assume that I knew more than my husband. And they call that maternal gatekeeping.
Hmm.
The idea that,
Okay.
some fathers may not have grown up with nurturing fathers, so they don't
Right.
necessarily have a role model for what that looks like. And so they can be a bit awkward as they try to work it out and figure out the skills involved of being, a sensitive caregiver. And I think sometimes women, and I certainly think it was me, um, could could falsely believe that it comes more naturally to women.
Hmm.
And I don't think it does. I think women, and actually the research supports that it's both fathers and mothers can be sensitive caregivers. It's just that men are not socialized to be sensitive caregivers, but I do believe that that's changing. And so what I would say is the number one thing is to have dads lean in on the conversations about emotions with their children, and not always have the mother come into the conversation and lead that conversation.
Yeah, it's hard because society has sort of starched it out of the guys to even know what their own emotions feel like. We often talk about they just kind of you jam emotions into a jar, and at some point you can't jam anymore in there, and you start to realize that you don't even know what they feel like, and so it is in some ways hard to talk about those emotions when you haven't been even practicing the art of talking about your own. So huge gap to fill there, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's also something too, as kind of like an older father. I started a family a little bit later in my life, and now my kids are, young adults in adulthood, and they're getting into that. Um, is it too late for a father to be more engaged in that realm, right? Because I think that, like, for me, I'm in a very different parenting place than Ed is. And so when I think about that stuff, and what you said really resonates, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe, my wife is also has a psychology background and all that kind of stuff. And, she's the more, I want to say, educated one and all that stuff. And I guess that's feeding into that kind of the motherly gatekeeping thing. And it's not that I don't want to do that, or that I don't do that often. I do, but probably not as much as she does. Is there a, like, what would you say for somebody in my shoes, that older kids, like, what would be some advice to help me get more involved in that?
I think talking about what you're going through in your own life with retirement, I mean, that's a huge change. You just
Yeah.
talked about retiring from being
Right.
a teacher. I mean, that is a huge life transition. And you could talk about life transitions, changing jobs, moving, all the things that it stirs up. It really disrupts, your identity, your sense of
Right.
self,
Right.
who you are, and how that. I think it's never too late for anyone to have these open conversations. I mean, never. And some of my best conversations with my dad occurred in my adulthood.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good
When he
point.
comes up to comes up to the conversations as equals.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of guys who when they get fearful of doing, this kind of work in their relationships, one, maybe they don't know how, right? They don't have the tools to know how to access to help them be successful in these kinds of things. So it's easy to go, oh well, my kids are older anyway now. It's too late. So I appreciate that. That's good info to help maybe some people who are in my same position with older kids, that it's never too late to do that stuff. That's great.
So how does this lead into the new topic that you're at hand, mattering? How did these two? I mean, I've read the book, so I know that they link up very similarly. But explain how this came about.
Yeah. So the first book was about achievement pressure on kids. And the next, and sort of the solution was the kids who were doing well despite the pressure in their environment were the kids who felt like they mattered for who they were deep at their core, away from their achievements. And what I realized in doing the research and speaking with hundreds of families around the country was that so many adults in these children's lives felt like they didn't matter, that they went to an office for 8, 10, 12 hours a day where they felt interchangeable, they felt like they could be let go at any time, or they worked at a major hospital and they felt like the insurance companies were crushing them, or they were teachers in this highly polarized world that we're in right now, feeling
Yes.
like they're not being appreciated or recognized for their work. And so this is the second book is really about adult mattering. And mattering is not my idea. It's been around since the 80s, but people with a high level of mattering who feel valued and have an opportunity to add value, those are people who thrive in life. And life transitions, retirement, becoming a new parent, moving, changing jobs, losing a job, getting divorced, the loss of a best friend or the loss of a spouse. These are all of the things that can really disrupt your sense of mattering. And so, how can we cope in the face of our mattering sort of at risk? So, the way I look at mattering is a solution to the loneliness, the anxiety, the depression, the substance abuse disorder that we're seeing all around the world really now. It's really the way I see it is it's a crisis of mattering. People, so let me just give you a little bit more on mattering. So
Right. Yeah.
researchers who study it say that after the human need for food and shelter, it is the instinct to matter that drives human behavior for better or for worse. So when we feel like we matter, we show up to the world in positive ways. We want to give back. We want to be good to the environment. We want to grow spiritually. We want to be a great neighbor. When we feel like we don't matter, we can turn against ourselves, become anxious, depressed, turn to substances to alleviate that pain temporarily. We can act out in anger. School shooters are among the most tragic examples. Oh, I don't matter. I'll show you I matter. So mattering is really, to me, if you want to know somebody, get to know how much they think they matter to themselves,
Wow.
to their families, to their communities.
That's huge. I think the dehumanization that's kind of gone on and continues to go on with social media and showing your highlight reels and just go to work, get a paycheck, go home, turn on Netflix, and not getting around other people. It's hard to find mattering in that narrative right there. It's super important, but where would you suggest that people even find mattering in that typical, probably very common daily life cycle?
Yeah. So I speak at a lot of corporations, and I was speaking at MD Anderson Cancer Center yesterday, and somebody said to me, "What can you do if you feel like, if you're going through weeks or months where you feel like you don't matter?" And I said, the best thing we can do in those moments is to actually unlock the mattering in people around us. So let's say you're working at a hospital or a corporation. At lunch, go and thank the people who always hand you your warm lunch with a smile, the security guard that you pass every day who creates this pleasant climate, that you walk into, appreciate your assistant, or appreciate the people in your office, recognize how they contribute to make your life better. So it's really unlocking other people's mattering, letting them see their value. And in doing that, we feed our own mattering.
That is such an important and seemingly simple thing. And I'll give you an example of something that from my teacher standpoint, I had some leadership in my building that didn't do a whole lot of that, like, thanking us, or, it was always in like a staff meeting and they thanked the entire staff, but there was no personable stuff that happened very regularly. It would happen maybe once a year. But and so it just kind of became like, yeah, whatever, that's just how they are. And it's just the culture of the building. But when I had a student at the end of class say, "Thank you, Mr. Auger," that went so much further, because there's almost like this expectation of like the people in charge are supposed to do those things, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily the players in your classroom. And so when a student would say that to me at the end of a class period, I was just like, it filled me with that kind of like, okay, yeah, wait a minute, maybe I am doing something right. You know what I mean? Because like as teachers, we can get into that. Yeah.
Totally. I'm making an impact. I'm seeing my impact.
Yeah. And it would, like, those moments were like the most profound and the ones that I hung my hat on, right? And at the end of the year, when a parent would come and say, "My kid had the best year, they loved your class," like those are the things that those are the ways that we feel that. So that's really cool. And it's seemingly easy to go to say somebody, the security guard you pass by every day, and be like, "Hey, thanks, for what you're doing." Yeah, that's great stuff. And it's so seemingly simple to do those things, to help people out.
I think it might be seemingly simple, but at the same time, it's one of the hardest things to go and do, right? Especially if you don't feel like you matter.
Mm-hmm.
To go and tell somebody else that they matter, I think is hard.
Right.
It is. It's if you feel like you don't matter, it is hard to get out of your own self-focused lens that you see the world, right? You're one of the researchers who study mattering said that, once that mattering is sort of what holds you back. When you feel like you don't matter, you're held back from so much. You can't sort of live this productive life until you get that sense that you matter. But it really only takes one person to let you feel like you matter. And sometimes really thanking that security guard and seeing him light up, that can make you feel like you matter. It only takes one person.
Right. Oh, that's such good stuff.
How much do outside forces, affect mattering versus inside? How much is it your own personal ambition to feel like you matter versus external, things making you feel like you matter?
I think it's 50-50. So to matter, we need to matter to ourselves. We need to matter to our, family, friends, and wider society. And we need to add value to ourselves, to our family, to our wider society. So you can't matter in a vacuum. You matter in relationship. So you can feel valued, but if no one else is appreciating you, you don't get that social proof that you crave as a social being, that you matter. So it's critical. Community is critical. Relationships are critical in feeling like you matter.
Now for, typically, I mean, a lot of stuff that Ed and I are working on is helping, the loneliness idea of men and not having the faculties or maybe the tools to do those kinds of things in our relationships and our friendships. It's so much easier to, crack a joke about your buddy than tell your buddy how much he means to you, right? And what they've helped him through. Have you seen in your research and kind of your understanding of these things, and your depth of understanding of these things is impressive. And so have you seen a difference between that in male versus female relationships? Because I mean, I think I don't know. I feel, and I don't want to pigeonhole into those old messages, but
Yeah.
the old school messages are that guys don't do those things,
Yep.
right? And so how do we help those men find that mattering, I guess, in their own relationships?
So yes, I think because of this hyper focus on individualism and self-reliance that
Yeah.
we raise our boys with, that it could be hard to acknowledge how somebody else contributes positively to your life, right? Because it feels
Right.
like
Right.
you should be able to do it all on your own. And so that's one of the things that hold men back is acknowledging how other people contribute. And so what I would say to men, I think a nice way to start, what I started with my boys is
Yeah.
I started doing these gratitude interventions, which is what researchers do when they go into schools and they teach kids about gratitude. It's not it's so it they teach kids how to think gratefully. So, how to appreciate the person behind the deed or the gift. So, the thank yous that matter most to people, like let's pretend a friend, uh, you know, bought you a new fishing rod.
Yeah.
Instead of saying thank you so much for that new fishing rod, a more poignant thank you is thank you for being the kind of friend that's always looking out for me, that knows how much I love fishing and just knows me like a book. And thank you for being that kind of friend. So the thank you about the you in thank you, not the gift. So, or,
Right
if
on.
somebody, you're sick and someone drops off a pot of soup, instead of saying thank you for the soup, you say thank you for being the kind of friend who always shows up for me, no matter what.
Right.
That's,
Wow.
that's great advice because I've been writing all of my thank you cards since I was a little kid as like, thank you for the soup.
That's how we're taught.
The soup makes me
Right.
Yes.
it
Right.
tastes so good.
Right.
I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's hard to switch from thank you for the object to thank you for the intention.
Yes. And
Right.
thank you for being the person who always does this, or thank you,
Right.
recognizing the value of the person.
Yeah.
Right. Ed, you were listening to the one about the fishing rod, right? You were listening to that? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Christmas is coming up. I got you.
No, that is like incredibly good advice, and that's something tangible that people can actually, use, and like that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, super helpful.
Well, this topic is awesome, and the work that you're doing on that is fantastic. I know it's going to help a ton of people when the book comes out. So looking forward to that for sure. Would you mind if we wrap this up with the GFW hot seat?
Let's do it.
Yes. Welcome to the GFW Hot Seat, where the name of the game is to answer the questions, and the prizes are. Wait, who said we have prizes?
All right. What is one thing you're currently celebrating in your life?
I am celebrating that my son is made a successful transition to college.
Nice, right?
That
Did
is,
you, is he?
you never know. You never know as a parent when they go off on their own. Some birds have to crash before they can fly, but this one is
Right.
soaring, and it's really thrilling to see.
I am in the same boat. My son just left and has been in his first month, and we never hear from him. And I think that's, it's almost
Great.
like no news is good news.
Yeah.
I wish he would be better at communicating with us when answering texts,
You
but
know what
he
I
is
get?
living his.
I get
Yeah.
the walk and talks. So on his way between classes or on his way to the
Classes.
cafeteria, just a quick walk and talk. And I love
Right.
them. I stop what I'm doing whenever I see his call come in.
Right. I'm going to suggest that to him because I'm just like, dude, like seriously, answer your mom's text, will ya? She's dying over here. That's awesome. What is one piece of content, book, video, TV series, movie, whatever, that you would recommend to our listeners?
So I think what we were talking about earlier about men and emotions, there's a book by Mark Brackett, who is the co-founder of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And he has a book called Permission to Feel that I think could be useful for men.
Nice. Good. That'll be huge.
It will be. What is one of your favorite fishing memories?
I would say fly fishing that one time with my husband and being the one to catch a fish, and he didn't.
Oh,
Nice.
But that I did. Yeah.
Right. Not that the result is right, but that result's pretty sweet.
yeah.
That's great. Jenny, what is one piece of advice you wish someone had given your 20-year-old self?
Um, One of my favorite pieces of advice that I got from interviews for my book Never Enough is from Ned Hallowell, who's a psychiatrist, and it's never worry alone.
Oh,
Hmm.
So I think if we could make that vow to
right.
ourselves and to each other that we will never worry alone, I think we could do a lot to buffer against the depression and anxiety that we're seeing around the country.
Right.
Yeah, you got to get it out there.
Right. And that in building community in that way too, right? That's kind of feeds right into that. That's awesome.
What is your definition of community?
My definition of community is healthy interdependence. So it is relying on others and allowing others to rely on me in healthy ways that balances the self and the other. So healthy
Right.
interdependence.
I love that. Healthy interdependent. You come up with all these great phrases and ways to like do all this stuff.
It's my
It's
job.
so good. I'm like, yes, that's awesome. That's so good. Jenny, what's one thing you've changed your mind about lately?
Actually, I changed my mind about this morning, and I'm gonna probably botch it because I'm trying to figure out exactly. I wrote it in my notes in my phone. And so, in researching the book Never Enough, I was reading about resilience research, and decades worth of research finds that our resilience rests fundamentally on our relationships. And so, in my head, I've been saying resilience rests on relationships. And then this morning, I realized resilience rests first on self compassion and then on relationships. Because if you're not compassionate with yourself, if you don't believe that you are worthy of support, you are not going to reach out to your relationships. So, this is all to say that when you think about resilience, I think you have to think of it as like a two-step move: compassion for yourself and your own suffering, and then the belief that you can that you are worthy of support. So reaching out to others.
Right.
So that's what
Others. Right. Nice. That's good. That makes logical sense. Yeah, that does. Good.
So our last segment is what we call the conversation between guests. And so we have a question from our last guest, who was Mark Walensky at a fishing school called Margot and Lola. And his question to you is a two-part question. So this question is one of Reed's passion. So there's a lot of judgment that's coming your way for it.
No, there isn't.
Uh-huh. So the first one is, if there were any musician living or dead that you could have in your backyard for your birthday party, who would it be and why?
It would be Billy Joel, because I
All
think he
right.
is one of the most extraordinary writers of all
Right.
time.
Yes.
Billy Joel or Bruce Springsteen, because both of them I think are poets.
Winner,
Huh?
winner, chicken parm dinner. Fully 100% agree with you. Yes. Good answer,
All right.
Jenny. Good answer.
All right. Question number 2. And before we ask this, he wants to clearly clarify that it's just hypothetical. But who would you call to bury the body and why?
My sister. She wouldn't ask questions.
Good. Yeah. I think at the heart of that question is to make sure that we all have that person, right?
Totally. Totally.
That's somebody. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's good stuff.
So what would your question be to our next guest?
I would love to know when they feel like they matter.
Good. Good.
It's a good question.
Mm.
It's a great question.
It's a good journal prompt, even just to sit down
Right.
and sit with.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Jenny, this has been fantastic and such a valuable conversation, eye-opening, mind-opening, all of those good things. Your insight is incredibly valuable and important, I think, kids, for adults, for so many people that struggle with some of these things. And I think that the work you're doing is really, really impressive and needed, much needed. Yeah, is certainly in the realm of education, but in parenting and in everything, just with the way our culture is right now. So I applaud you for all of that. Tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you or find your stuff.
So I'm on Instagram at Jennifer Burhenny Wallace. I have a website. You could sign up for a newsletter, jenniferbwallace.com. And I'm on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Great.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Thank you guys so much.
This was so awesome.
Yeah,
you.
we appreciate you being with us, and you hold the title as our first female guest. So
Yeah.
you are the queen. You are the queen of GFW
I
right now.
love
Absolutely,
that.
yes. You will always be the first female guest that we've had.
Love that.
Yeah, so you will always wear that crown for us, and we appreciate it. We couldn't ask for a better person to do that for us.
Thank you. I hope I did my gender proud. Thank you.
You
did.
did.
You
You
did.
100% did.
You outfished
Yep.
your husband, so you win.
You win.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being a part of us. Yeah, thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Never worry alone.
Never worry alone. Talk to me.
I thought that was a great piece of advice in the sense that I find myself whenever I do worry, a lot of the bad worry is just like me ruminating in my head over and over and over again about something. And I do find when I get something out on the table, whether it's to a friend or a wife or whatever, that it does kind of ease the load a little bit. So I thought that was a very succinct and well put tidbit of wisdom.
Right. She gave us so much usable stuff in terms of, talking about maybe some difficult things or parenting or whatever. She gave us actual usable things that I think are super helpful for me. And I mean, obviously by my questions, you could tell I was coming from that vantage point. Like, how do I talk about these things? But yeah, I mean, down to, one of the things that I really loved was that idea of getting, beyond the, thank you for the soup, right? But thank you for being there for me. Like that's a whole nother level of making somebody feel like they matter. And so giving us those kinds of real simple, easy things to do, like those are real life things I can take right now, and use them. And so that was super helpful.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see her book that she's putting together on the topic of mattering. I think it's something that we all kind of struggle with and want to know that we do matter. And so I'm excited to read about that topic and learn how I can get better at all that.
Absolutely. And her choice for band at her party, Billy Joel or, The Boss. Yes, please. 100%.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to celebrations and navigations. What are you celebrating this week?
We have a trip to go see my daughter postseason high school playoff start for softball for her. So, I think I mentioned this, but she's like the only class to make playoffs all 4 years as a varsity starter. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And we get to go up to Grand Junction. We got put in a region with a team from up there that's hosting. So I get to go see my other daughter too. So I get to see Addie as well. So we get to make a whole weekend of it. So super psyched for that. Celebrating
That's awesome.
her and that. Yeah.
That'd
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah. It would be good. How about you, brother?
Well, it's here. It's
here.
It's the week of running the big marathon. So my celebration is making it to this point, sticking with a training plan, getting through it all and, hopefully being ready to go here on Saturday. So we shall see. But it is just a celebration of putting in the work, getting to this point and, being as prepared as I'm going to be. So,
right. Yeah. Kudos, man. You are a thing to behold. I'm telling you, it's inspirational to watch and be a part of this process and see you going through all this. It's super cool, man. It's exciting.
Yeah. it's been a journey. But it leads me into my navigation, which is my nerves are through the roof a bit. Well, maybe not through the roof, but they're there for sure. Just, can I pull it off? Can I finish it? The farthest I've run so far is 20 miles. So another 6 miles, 6.2 miles to the finish line. Still feels pretty daunting because that'll probably take me about another hour. So,
Right.
it'll be a whole new thing once I go beyond that 20-mile mark.
Well, hopefully you can calm your nerves down, know that you've done everything, trust that, you know what I mean? And trust in yourself, dude. You've done amazing work and come a long way. And I think that, you're going to crush it. So
I appreciate that. We'll,
yeah,
one foot in front of the other.
that's right.
What are you navigating?
I am navigating something little, but it still, kind of matters. Dude, I cannot find a pillow that doesn't cause me neck pain. I'm waking up like just stiff and my pillow sucks, and it's really hard to find a pillow that freaking, I got like 3 I'm constantly just rotating in and out because I can't get comfortable with them.
Well, what's the ideal pillow? I mean, what are you going for? A soft pillow?
I don't like the
Firm
mushy
pillow?
ones. No,
mushy.
I need one that, like, I don't know, that will support my neck and not make me wake up feeling stiff, dude. I get, especially my left side. I'm a side sleeper.
You're a side sleeper.
Yeah.
And so when you sleep on the pillow, is it pushing your neck? Well, the tip of my head's not helping me at all.
Yeah.
But is it pushing up, or are you falling down to the pillow? Like, what do you think the issue is?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I don't want a really hard pillow that gives me a headache. So yeah, but the neck pain's, so I don't know. I got to find the right balance. I feel like a puffy pillow is what I need. Yeah, like you know what I mean? A soft puffy pillow, not a mushy pillow,
Soft,
but a
puffy, not soft mushy.
Right. There's a difference. You know what I'm saying?
There's a difference. I can feel it.
It's stressful though, because you want to order one online, you read the reviews, they're like, it's a great pillow, and then you're like, what if it sucks? What if it doesn't do the job? You can't return a pillow, then you got 20 pillows. So I don't know.
Right.
People don't want to hear my pillow problems. But that's what I'm navigating. Hey, we have a mailbag, right? Anybody got suggestions for pillows?
Yeah, send us some pillow suggestions.
Send them pillow suggestions.
What's your pillow budget? I have had this.
Right? That's the other thing. How much do you spend on a pillow?
There's like $250 pillows.
Craziness. I'm not spending $250 on a pillow, dude. I can guarantee you that. But
it's crazy. I don't think I could do that either.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to spend on a pillow.
But if your neck feels like you're not stiff, maybe it's worth it.
I might pay that for comfort, to not wake up feeling like I got a headache and stiff and my jaw's all tight and clenched. I don't know, man. So anyway,
hit us up in the mailbag if you have any pillow suggestions.
We need some pillow suggestions for an old guy. Yes, please.
All right, brother. Well, this was another good one in the books.
Great job, kiddo. Hey, good luck on the run. I'll be thinking about you. I'll be sending inspirational texts that you won't get until after you're done running, but whatever.
Actually, I will get them. The AirPods read them to you while you run. So
nice.
I will hear them.
Right on, dog.
So, all right, man. Love you, man.
Love you too, bro.
Talk to you.
Talk soon.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our website, guysfishingweekend.com, to check out the GFW merch, sign up for our newsletter, and learn how to get involved with the community. We appreciate you spending even a little bit of your week with us and are glad to have you along on the journey. Stay legendary and happy fishing.